Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited to share my conversation today with Rachel Estapa. She is the founder and CEO of More to Love. She is passionate about empowering people to love and appreciate their bodies. Rachel is a certified 200-hour yoga instructor and professionally certified transformational life coach, equipped with over 1,000 professional training hours in the necessary tools to share what she has learned and empower others to love, accept, and care for their bodies and their entire selves. Rachel was named grand prize winner of MasterCard and Bank of America's Grow Your Biz contest and has been profiled in numerous outlets, including the Boston Globe, USA Today, Shape Magazine, and many more. And with that, that is how I connected with Rachel, was through our shared relationship with Bank of America and NAWBO, the National Association of Women Business Owners. So welcome to the show today, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I am excited to share your story. You are doing amazing work. I'm so looking forward to diving in. But before we get to your current business, take us back. Where are you from? And take us along your career path. Talk about any education along the way, all that good stuff.
Sure. So yeah, the story of my life, and like everyone else's, it's not linear. So it's sort of as a testament to, I think, the business mindset of people that you kind of pick up things along the way. But I am from Boston, Massachusetts, and I grew up just a little bit outside of the city, north of it. And so my background really is I'm a traditional American immigrant story where my father came over from Ireland in the late 70s, and my mother, her parents were from Italy directly. So I grew up in a working class. My father was a teacher. My mother was administrator for like a lumber company back in the day. So I really embodied sort of that ethos of work hard, be good, be kind, and make sure that you don't forget where you're from. So I went to college also in Boston at Suffolk University, and it's there that I studied both political science, international relations, and also philosophy. And that interest in philosophy definitely made no sense then, and everyone was like, well, what are you going to do with that? But now, today in my profession with More to Love and sort of what I'm known for, I knew all along that my happiness is somewhere between creating good for people and also taking that introspective look onto like, what are your own values and how are you cultivating a life that you are excited to lead. So when I was in college, I had the opportunity to work for Senator Edward Kennedy. He was the senator from Massachusetts here. And I worked in immigration and policy, really connecting with the public around policy issues that affected them, like immigration. And so from there, I led myself into working more with education in the civic development realm. So I started working with a nonprofit, and we would work with people from overseas predominantly that wanted to come to the United States and just learn about how business works here, how democracy works here, and making it applicable to like civic engagement. But then in 2008, I was laid off from that job. And for me, I was in my early 20s. I think I was maybe 22 at the time. So to me, it wasn't a huge blow because I really had just started in my career. But at that same time, I saw both my parents lose their jobs. My mom of her job of almost 40 years, and then my dad a teaching position. So from that really early on messaging around work and career and professionalism, I saw how important it is to rely on yourself, your skill set, really cultivate things that can transcend someone finding you employable, right? And the more that I focused in on like, what do I want my life to be like, the more and more it came back to things that were personal to me and helping other people also work on that. So things around health, things around wellness, things around personal growth and development. So while I was, unemployed, I just attended as many free education seminars as possible. Like I was like all over town. I kind of became a student again. And I had to make a decision. Did I want to pursue a traditional education, which would be, going back to school for a master's degree and XYZ, or did I want to start to tone in and tune in to this personal growth around health and wellness that was always super important to me, and we can talk about why. But I decided to forego grad school, much to the shock of a lot of people at that time. And I went to coaching school, and it was sort of when coaching was still kind of new ish. It's much more popular than it is today than it was, even just 15 years ago. And I loved it. And really from the get-go, I knew that I wanted to create work and movements and businesses for myself that first and foremost felt like an extension of who I am. And now the world with more to love, if this is a good chance to bring that in.
Let's do it. But hold on one sec. Before we jump over to that, you said something I want to go back to, health and wellness. Why was that so important to you? Sure.
So health and wellness has always been, for me, the probably number one issue on my mind. And for, I would say, all of my youth until maybe the past, few years, it was always under the guise of you should be changing your body. So I grew up plus size. I was a chubby kid. I use the term fat because that's empowering to me. And it took me a long time to get there. So, but I was, a larger teenage body too, and in my 20s. And no matter who you are, larger, smaller, all of us have some form of body image issue. Sometimes it never, people don't know about it, or we kind of just, go along with what the trends are. But for me, the toll around trying to change and alter my body, it had such a severe effect on my own self-esteem and well-being that I was like, I can't keep believing that something is wrong with me. So health has always been really important to me because I also have an underlying health condition. It's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that's a hormonal imbalance. And 1 out of 10 women experience that. It affects like your period, hormones, fertility. It's like across the gamut of our well-being. So through that lens of trying to understand what makes me feel well, what makes me feel balanced without adding that whole level of shame to it, that's really where the seedlings of More to Love's work originated. But first and foremost, it was for myself to feel that I was whole, that I was good, that I could be not something to apologize for. And that's something that is a thread throughout all of the ventures that I put my name on.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, Rachel. And before we dive into your current business, it looks like you did a stint at Harvard as well.
I did, yeah. So I was at Harvard University for about a decade, and the first job that I got there was actually out of necessity. I needed a job, and so I started temping. And one of my positions ended up being at the Harvard's Central Public Affairs and Communications Division. So meaning like the PR firm for Harvard, like the Harvard you and I all know. And a woman who ended up becoming my boss for many years, she saw me just sort of like, grinding away, being a temp. She's like, you're always running off to something, or you're always working on something when like the phones aren't ringing. What are you working on? So I told her about my stuff, and she's like, I want to give you a job because I know that you can do this. And I worked with them in that office for 8 years before I transferred to something else. And I learned firsthand how to both position yourself as an idea and a way that people can interact with your ideas. Like that's what a university is, right? So, so much skill learning around marketing, making relationships, telling your story, making things both possible for other people to participate, but still positioning yourself as the authority and the expert. I mean, this is exactly what I think successful business people need to do. And in my experience at Harvard, I really got a firsthand practice and skills of seeing how it's done at the top level.
So interesting. Wow. Well, it looks like you were, working on your business at the same time, growing
moonlighting.
That.
Oh
yes,
yeah,
moonlighting. Yes.
I used to get up at 6 a.m, work for 2 hours, go to work, and then come home and then work for another, however long I needed to. And I did that for many, many, many years.
Wow. Awesome. So how long have you been focused on your business full time now, Rachel?
Sure. So I officially left Harvard last July.
Okay.
So now mine is COVID.
Yeah. Oh gosh. We'll get into that. My goodness.
So I've been full-time with More to Love since then. And I also have another business with my husband.
Oh, awesome. What is that business?
Yeah, we own an optical shop just around the corner, a physical optical shop, selling glasses. And there is a connection with More to Love, believe it or not, for eyewear designed for larger bodies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. So let's get into your primary focus, your business, More to Love. You obviously passionate about yoga. You've trained, you've built this, I'm sure, an incredible practice. What was the day that said, okay, I have to do this full time. I've got to leave my job at Harvard. The podcast is called Flight Club, so we like to pause and talk about that moment where we like to say you kind of jumped off the cliff.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Sure. I mean, this was like the biggest question for me for years. I knew what I wanted to do. I was just afraid, truthfully. Mm-hmm. The risks associated with businesses, and then especially one that is more niche, I was afraid. And I'm someone that, for whatever reason, I've always believed in the timing of things. That I have always believed, even as a kid, that if you put thoughtful attention to something and do the good work, when the timing comes, you'll know. And I really do believe in that. And so while I was, out of necessity having to still remain at Harvard working to get a paycheck, I made sure that I was still putting as much as I can into acting as if I was already on my own with More to Love. So it became more of a balancing of my time and being really good around my energy. Believe it or not, one of the things that sort of struck me is, okay, we gotta make a move here, because you kind of know where you get into that dance of maybe tomorrow, not too dissimilar from how diets work for a lot of us, sort of like, tomorrow I'll set time aside. We can do that for anything. And taking the leap on your business is one of them. But I was at the gym one day and I was, just plugging along, and this new billboard came up in front of the gym, and it was for a bank. But the term on it said, it's not a risk if you plan for it. And that term was like, yeah, you're right. Like, if I'm thoughtful and keep at my goals and just supporting what I have, then the transition won't be as bumpy. So I really gave myself a window of about 6 to 8 months to transition from, relying on Harvard, which included paycheck, health insurance that is by far probably, I'm never going to receive that level of amazing healthcare ever again. At least not right now. That, the big piece for me also was, and maybe this resonates with you and people listening to, you have to back up your talk. Like, I couldn't keep saying, oh, I want to do this, but my action wasn't coming through on it. Yeah. So that piece right there, I mean, that's just as much as it is planning, as much as it is an ego check, right? Mm-hmm. So, being true to my word is a huge value of mine. And that comes back from my upbringing. Absolutely. Like, you may not have a lot in this world, but you have your word. Yeah. That is gold. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I made a plan. I talked with my bosses. I said, I want to leave by X date. So I treated it just like any other big investment in someone's life. You plan for it and you put your best self out there, and you let people know along the way that can help get the community excited. That was another big piece, because More to Love by this time already had, a larger number of very active and engaged followers that I was, always keeping our community in the loop. Like, here's an idea that I have here. So I didn't feel like I had to do it all alone, even though I'm the name on the door. But again, riding that momentum, and it's just something that you feel, right? Like, you just sort of know when it's time, and it's that step forward, and that the step forward doesn't have to be the last final perfect set in stone step. Like, it can be a very wobbly step out, but you're putting yourself forward. And every day since then, with the support of my husband, my family, my personal friends, and then the community of More to Love, it's always this reminding myself that, like, this is a risk, but it's not a risk in a reckless sense. I'm skilled. I went to school for this. I'm known for this. I put my heart and hustle into this. I'm allowed to reap the rewards and benefits of going full time into this endeavor.
I love that. Heart and hustle, indeed.
Yes.
So with that, Rachel, were you teaching in person at the time? Talk about kind of the structure of the business, and then, of course, how it's changed over the course of COVID.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in the beginning, More to Love started first as education around the how-to of body acceptance, to kind of give a little shape to this. It wasn't too long ago, and it still exists today, but not too long ago, larger bodies were not seen in media or TV or the world as something positive, very almost seen as like, you don't want to become this. So there was this space for practitioners like myself who were learning and shedding our own beliefs around body image, that also had to explain and teach other people, like, here's another way. So More to Love first started off as education around, like, what are the core essential aspects of body acceptance and body image, and what are the tools to help you? So that's where the yoga, the mindfulness, the skills around body and embodying wellness, and then the mindset of it comes into play. When I started practicing yoga, it was terrible. I hated it, to be honest, because I didn't fit in. I felt like an outcast. But the more that I started to practice yoga for myself, I saw it as such a huge opportunity for other people that either looked like me or maybe resonated with a sense of feeling like you didn't want to be shamed into fitness, even though that's sort of how a lot of people come into fitness, that I just put the pieces together and constantly asking and talking to others, like, how do you feel about this? Or what about this? So that educational component was really important from the beginning. So yeah, I would teach weekly classes in person. I would have virtual programs also. Then I also did retreats hosted at Kripalu Center, which is this it's a yoga center out our way. Partnered a lot with various institutions in the Boston area, like the colleges. Harvard University, believe it or not, hired me for some stuff. Hospitals, just really getting in front of people that were already in the space and mindset of education and wanting to improve on their lives. And so now, today, because of COVID, which I actually had COVID. My husband and I had it back in March and April.
Pause on that for a second. What was that experience like?
So my worst nightmare happened because I, just out of the sheer luck, remember the timing in the universe, my health insurance, I had a gap the month that I got COVID.
No.
And that was always the thing on my mind, like, oh my gosh, like, what happened? Like, that was like the worry came true. Yeah. And guess what? It worked out. So it worked out. Having COVID so early on here, and also with my husband, it was traumatic, and it's still something that, even though I'm about, a handful of months beyond it, I'm still trying to understand how much that impacted not only me personally, my health, my well-being, but my community. Like I said before, my husband and I have a business together. It was supposed to open April 1st. That couldn't happen. I was also supposed to be opening up a yoga studio. That didn't happen. So on top of health and being sick actively for about 6 weeks, all of that came crumbling down too. But because I have done the work, I knew how to not fix it or resolve it. I knew what I needed to do, which is like, you got to come back to your essentials, right? All of us have these core things about our lives and our well-being that we need when everything else goes awry. I tuned into my body acceptance on a level I didn't even think was possible when I was really, really, really sick. So it shifted everything. And it will continue to shift everything. It's massive. And I believe that, those huge crises are just another way to practice what I preach in a bigger step. Not saying that it's easier. It still sucks. And I'm actually still personally dealing with lingering effects from COVID, which is not uncommon. But at least I know that I've got my wits about me for the foundational things.
Yeah, my goodness. Oof. Girl, you've been through a lot this year.
Yeah, and it's only April or October 9th.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness grief. We'll talk about the business now. What's weekly look like for you? What are the types of things that you're continuing to do, obviously, but maybe in slightly different ways?
Sure. Yeah. So, I always, More to Love has always been in between both personal self-improvement and empowerment and community, and that doesn't need to change, right? That where things happen doesn't make it better than if it happens online or in person. So for right now, More to Love is virtual, meaning that as soon as I got better with COVID, I put all my classes online, both for people to now join anywhere in the world virtually, live, and also recorded. So that's been really fun. And then I also put together a monthly program for people that have realized that COVID has changed so much around their well-being and wellness, and that their own self-care usually goes last on people's lists, right? Yeah. More to Love Monthly is a way for people to get that higher up on the list. So providing right to the inbox, recorded 30-minute yoga classes, guided meditations around a theme. October's theme is openness, to kind of promote this sense of like, yeah, we've been closed off. Things have felt so abruptly shut. Let's start to shift that, if not anything, within our bodies. So trying to relate things that are really happening in our lives to our individual wellness, because that to me is how you feel good about yourself, that you're actually doing things day to day towards a bigger goal. So that's been exciting to do that, and then always continuing with planning when they can come back in. Retreats, working on a few virtual retreats. So week to week, it looks like teaching classes, filling up the classes, speaking to people as much as I possibly can, listening a lot, and providing relatable content and tools that actually help larger bodies navigate whatever 2020 is going to be throwing at us next.
Please, nothing else, Rachel.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We've got like 3 weeks so we know how things are going down.
Good Lord. I just want to hide.
And that's the thing, like, you have to meet where people are at. Yeah. Right. So much that I've seen around a lot of health and wellness and fitness, it's sort of getting people to another location. And it's not that people don't want to get there. It's just that realistically, how can you get there? So I'm of the attitude, meet people where they're at. Like, let's talk about stress. And instead of lamenting on how crappy things feel, let's like own it, describe it, get real familiar with it. And then things shift. Like that's what yoga is for. Yoga is meant to help us release tension and get ourselves more centered in the moment. It's a tool, right? And if people don't feel like they're even allowed to experience yoga in their bodies, then what's the point of it? So being honest around like your life, your body, your struggles, and then, because Brene Brown said this, and it's a quote that I really resonated when she said this. She was talking about vulnerability, and that's kind of her big thing. And she was like, if I can't speak honestly about myself, then it means that I also can't listen to you speak honestly about yourself. And just being able to put that on the table is healing. Yeah. It's help. It's a subtle, gentler form of healing that I relate to, and I know that the people in the More to Love community really resonate and respond with.
Absolutely. Oh, so much to look forward to in 2021. So what is it that's on the horizon for your business? So we'll just assume we sail through the rest of 2020.
Yeah.
What does next year look like for you?
Sure. It's building out the More to Love monthly program, having it be something that is, people are excited to get that, that email on the first of the month, and then a group communal session during the month all together to connect with the community, and really having a space for me personally to kind of slow it down and talk about things in a bit more personal way, that we can get so caught up with the distraction around social media. I've been pulling back a lot from that, so that people can have this, we're all maxed out with what we can do, right? Yeah. And this incubation period, I just know that that's really what people are after, sort of this sanctuary space. And that's what I want More to Love to harness going forward, until things are safer for us to gather back in person. So when retreats come back in, maybe revisiting some classes. Again, timing is everything, and I believe in timing. So I trust that will make itself known when it needs to, but there's plenty of work and plenty of opportunity to do it now. And I think that's an attitude that is the entrepreneurial spirit in me, is the making it work spirit in me from my background, my upbringing, from where I've worked. It's sort of you have to use what you have and be grateful and humble and appreciative of the people that choose you amidst so many distractions in the world. Yeah,
absolutely. Well said. Well, I am excited to have you at the Nabo Grava finale event here in a couple weeks, and we're going to dive into more of these conversations. So for now, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, Rachel, what's the quickest, easiest, best way for them to do that?
Yep. Head to moretoloveyoga.com. And on there, you can join a live stream. You can check out some other free goodies. I've got some free yoga classes up there, a little bit more about me. It's just a nice hub to connect.
Perfect. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I have so enjoyed our conversation today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.